Check. Check one.
Check.
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 All right, we'll call this meeting to order. This hearing of the Provo Landmarks Commission. Today is April 17th, 2024. Time is 12:30 p.m. We will begin with a roll call. Let's start over on my left hand with Matt. State your name and if you have any conflicts with the applicant.
My name is Matt Christensen, no conflicts.
Susan Kruger Barber, no conflicts.
Eric Carter, no conflicts.
Scott Bingham, no conflicts.
Marcy Lemonnier, no conflicts.
Thank you. A few notes on decorum. Although this is a public hearing, only the presenters and those invited by the committee may speak or ask questions. Unless otherwise invited by the chair, please wait to speak until called on. When speaking, please be sure to speak into the microphone so that the record is clear. Please state your name and city of residence for the record. Please limit side conversations as they interfere with the audio recording. If you need to have a side conversation, please step out of the chambers. Please do not attempt to interrupt or speak over people. Intimidating or threatening speech or behavior will not be tolerated. At any time, please refrain from clapping, cheering, booing, or being otherwise disruptive during the hearing. At this time, we'll read in the agenda items. Item number 1, Brian Dabb requests a certificate of appropriateness for a 3-lot subdivision in the R1.6 one-family residential zone in order to create 2 new building lots adjacent to a registered historic residence located at 905 East Center Street in the Foothills neighborhood. So now we will turn the time over to Dustin Wright with the Planning Department.
All right, thank you. So yeah, this item that we're looking at again today was heard at our last meeting last month and was continued. So I'll just kind of give a quick background of what the discussion we had last time to fill in those that weren't here at that meeting. Essentially, so here's the property that's on the historic register. there was a home on this current property, but it was at that time on an adjacent parcel. It's been demolished. And so you can see that where lot 3 is shown here on this map was where a home used to be. But the historic home here on the corner has an existing garage. And you can see here the applicant's proposing to have that detached garage removed and divide up this property so that there'd be 3 single-family home lots. And so the request before the Landmarks Commission is for a certificate of appropriateness. So you're deciding if it's appropriate to approve this request to divide for them to be able to divide the property and for them to remove that garage. And so in the past, we looked at historic aerial imagery back to the 1960s. In this exact location, there was a garage there from those aerial images all the way up until the present day. There's a garage there. The applicant brought up a building permit for a garage to be built in, I think it was 1994, 1996, somewhere in there. And so the applicant's, I guess, motive there was that the garage is not historic, and it's hard for staff to determine whether or not the garage was completely demolished and rebuilt. But I think regardless of that, the way that staff's reviewing it is there has been a garage there in that location, in that same footprint, whether or not it's the current existing garage or an older one that was demolished. But that its situation on the property and the size of the property and all those things go into the character of what the historic property is, and not specifically just the historic home there on the corner. And so staff's recommendation was to deny the request to divide it into 3 lots and remove the garage for those reasons. So that's kind of a bit of background. And then at the end of the meeting, it was continued so that they could come back and show how, if it were approved, how they could even fit the parking that would be required. So currently the parking situation is it complies with our current city code, having covered parking and sufficient space to park and meet city codes right now. And so removing that would take it out of compliance. So they needed to show how they could still move forward with compliance with the city code. And so here's kind of where that came back. They provided this showing where the carport would be located to meet the covered parking requirement. So 1 parking stall out of the 3 has to be covered, and then there need to be 3 parking stalls. And so staff's reviewed this and doesn't see that it's going to be able to meet our current code requirements. The space that's back there from the back edge of the existing house to that new property line is going to be about 20 feet, which isn't going to be enough space to have a 3-foot setback, a 10.5-foot wide carport, and then 9.5 feet for the other parking stalls that aren't covered. The other issue that it would run into would be lot coverage. So in that zone, it's required to not exceed 40% of lot coverage, both paved area and structure and access paving. So as it's shown here, it's already appearing to be over 50%, plus that paved area that's shown there would actually have to extend more to the west to get the depth for 2 parking stalls there. So really it's just not gonna fit. And then the other thing that staff has noticed, so in the applicant's letter that you received, he talked about the current width of the parcel. So this is the parcel here with the hatching over it is what it was in place when the property was nominated to be put on the register. And so he stated that that was 49 feet in width. The current code requires 60 feet of width for lots in this zone, and it requires corner lots to be 10 feet wider, which would be 70 feet. So this parcel is what we would call a non-conforming lot, meaning it doesn't meet today's current standards. And in our non-conforming code, we want to allow a lot that doesn't meet the current codes to then be reduced or changed. So regardless of whether or not it's appropriate to historically to remove the garage and to divide the lot, so regardless of the decision, it still wouldn't be able to be approved as a subdivision there. So staff wanted to bring that to your attention. But again, yeah, we're looking at, is it appropriate to allow the garage and the lot to be changed? And staff's recommendation is that it wouldn't, and that we would be okay with it going back to the 2 lots, how it was before that home was demolished on the east side. And so the recommendation, the staff report has language of how that would work. Essentially redividing the lot and making sure that the existing garage is on the lot with the home, and that property line could jog around instead of going through the garage like the applicant said that currently, or did prior to it being combined into one. So if you have any questions for me that I could help clarify anything, I'd be happy to do that.
I do have a question on this particular slide. When it says that non-conforming lots can't be reduced, is that going back to the original shaded area or the lot in its current state where the 2 parcels were combined?
I think we would look at it potentially and say, if the applicants claim that they've combined them for tax purposes, we'd be comfortable with it going back to the 2 lots. Because, you know, this particular size of this lot would be able to be put back to how it was. And so I think that would be appropriate, but further reducing it from what it was at that point would be going beyond what the code would allow. So we wouldn't be able to do that.
Right. I guess my question is, since the 2 lots are combined, are they still currently considered non-conforming?
With them combined, excuse me, with them combined into one, they'd be conforming. They're well over.
Yeah, in its current state.
The current state, yeah. But to show some flexibility, I think we'd be okay with it going back to the 2 lots, even though it'd still be non-conforming. As it's shown here, it's 61 feet wide, not 70. But further reducing it so that lot 1 could be created wouldn't be allowed in the code.
So I'm thinking about parking. That's one of my obsessions. And I am curious, so would all 3 lots share the parking? And it would just be the house would be the carport if they built like
No, no, I think what the intent here is showing that they'd share a driveway coming off of Center Street. So you can see over on the right-hand side, there's currently a driveway coming from Center Street and then a driveway coming from 900 East to the back side of that garage.
So they only provided the parking for the historic home as a carport in this drawing.
They're just showing how lot 2 with a historic home would be able to be parked. Lot 3 and lot 1 aren't showing how that would work, but that's kind of a separate issue from.
Okay, got
the
it.
Marks Commission would be
Yeah.
looking at. We would have to, when they submit for a building permit, we'd have to make sure that those meet those parking requirements.
Great.
But we just wanted to be able to show or visualize, if it's even possible to do it. And this is showing that there's
Yeah.
not a way to get that to fit and be in compliance
Okay. For that particular lot, I understand now.
for lot 2, correct?
Any other questions for Dustin? Okay, thanks, Dustin. Do we have a representative for the applicant here? All right, go ahead and you'll have 15 minutes to make your presentation. When your time is up, you'll hear a ding and the microphone will be muted. Following your presentation, if we have questions, we'll invite you to come back up.
So Dustin laid it out pretty clearly.
Will you state your
sorry.
name?
I'm Justin Dabb. I'm in Springville, but I'm representing Brian for this lot in Provo.
Thank you.
So with that there, Dustin pointed out most everything. He's given rough measurements for the rear yard based on an aerial image. With actual measurements, there is enough space to meet the 40% requirement that he was saying would be hard to do. But the carport's required to be 20 feet deep and 10.5 feet wide. And with that, there's enough room that you could put additional parking there and still meet that 40% that is required if the lot is increased to the size of the 61.5 feet that is being asked for there. Currently, he's suggested that we go back to 2 lots. The biggest issue with that is we don't actually need approval here to do that. All we'd have to do is go to the deed that we have with the county and say, we'd like to remove this stipulation where they're combined for tax purposes, and we could go back to these 2 lots. The garage as it sits right now, if we are to do that, is actually about split 50-50. If you look right where the peak is and draw a line down it, it's almost right in line with the side of the home. There's about 3 feet off the side of the home is the current lot line as it is. And so the driveway and all of that are no longer part of that parcel. And so 905, all of its access is actually that rear driveway that you can see coming into the garage. And it just has that one part. The rest of that is actually in the other parcel. And so it's kind of, weird there how it's done, but that is how it was as they grew 9th East in the past. They kept taking away from that lot, which is where that one ended up being so much smaller than the others. And so we're trying to widen that and give the possibility that, we have functioning lots there again. Currently as is, the driveway's all on what would be the 911 lot. And so we're proposing that we get the chance to put one driveway in for both of them, allowing them both good access off center. So you don't have to back in and out on 9th as it is currently. And so right now you can see a lot of people will do the loop around the garage for access, where if that's to become a separate lot, that is no longer an option. You have to go back out on 9th there for that parcel there at 905. So with measurements, you can do that. The lot line where the garage is currently splits it as well. I think that was it. I just want to make sure I wasn't missing any points, but those are, the key things is with actual measurements, there is enough room to be able to hit that 40%. And then we can come up with a plan for the specific layout of that for the planning and zoning and things when we are to create a carport there. But that would, there is enough room that would allow enough for 3 parking spaces along with a carport. And then currently, as it sits, if we are to go back to that 2 parcels, we could do that without the approval from the Landmark Commission, as well as it would end up splitting that garage, which causes other conflicts where currently it sits over the property line. But where in the last few years it's been owned by the same individual hasn't been an issue. But if we are to sell that off, it would become an issue. And so we're seeking to find a way that we can split the property to be usable, but also allow further conflicts to not exist there. So.
Okay, thank you. I do have a question. You mentioned the intent would be all 3 properties are accessed from Center Street. Is that accurate?
So that is one of the things we proposed. It hasn't been specifically stated here, but one of the things that has been proposed with the city traffic engineer is to say, use this driveway for all 3 properties, where it would give them all an area to do at least a 3-point turn or a U-turn in the back there. If we did like a side load garage off of lot 1 there, they could pull straight in off of that, and you'd have a shared driveway that would allow for safer traffic access rather than having to jump straight out on 9th where it's higher traffic flows. So.
Okay, that I think is my only question. Any other commissioners have questions?
As I spoke with some planners and read things sent to me, one suggested the possibility of a garage still there echoing the existing garage. Does that but then you might have to change the whole size of the properties proposed, but then it would echo the history that existed when it was built. But it sounds like it's going to be a carport.
So
If
it
we
could
do
be a
it?
garage if we were to build something there. Just as it is, it's the minimum requirement is there is a carport.
Okay.
And so where we don't have a plan set for the planning commission for permits and things, we're just seeking that certificate of appropriateness. We're showing that it is possible to be able to hit that with, at least a carport.
Okay.
And so if we did adjust lot lines and things, there's a chance that we could also do a garage as well, but that hasn't been fully scoped out with drawings. So.
Mhm.
So I've got a question just about the carport. So if I understood correctly, then you were suggesting that if you actually take the measurements, the carport does fit on that property.
Yes.
And it still allows for like the 10-foot space between the property line and the house for lot 1. That's okay.
So it's actually 3 feet is what code requires. It's
Oh, is that
3
what it
feet
is?
from the edge of the property line to the back property
Oh,
line.
okay.
From the street line, it's 30 feet. And then
Okay.
it has to be a minimum of 8 feet from the house. But
I've never had to build, so
Yeah.
I just see 10. Okay, thank you.
so, and that's in that code that's there, the 1410.03, I believe, is what it states there. So.
Terrific, thank you.
How do your measurements differ from the measurements we're seeing here? How is it that your measurements work
I
and
don't
these
remember the
don't?
exact one off the top of the corner there, the garage. His is just from an aerial photo where he said, okay, using a, known reference point, we're just stretching a, tape via computer animation is what it
So the
shows.
image on my right on the screen, yeah, you're right too. That image right there, the orange line.
Mhm.
Okay. And you have enough in the sketch on the left to house 3 parking spaces?
Yes. So that's not the exact area as that one's not dimensioned, but there is enough room there that 10.5-foot carport that's 20 feet long, and then 2 more additional parking stalls could fit.
I might need you to do the math for me there.
Okay.
So if
I
you
don't
have
have the
a 10,
exact measurement on me.
if you have a 10 and a half
But-
foot garage or a carport, 10 and a half by 20 feet long, that's one car, right?
So that's just the required area that's covered. That's the
Right.
required covered area.
So that'll be one parking spot.
Mhm.
And then you have your paved area, which graphically on the image on the left looks like it's the same width as the parking.
It would be
Width
very
and length.
similar. I don't,
And so
didn't have it.
that would
measured
equal
off.
2 stalls, right?
Mhm.
Where's the third stall?
So in the paved area, you could make it deep enough that you could do 2 deep, or you could have a park next to it there, where that lot line is. You could go back far enough from there to there, from the street side of 9th to the lot line. You would be able to have enough of your room from paved area to have 2 cars deep there.
Okay, which would be right up next to the sidewalk on 9th East.
So from the sidewalk, you have your minimum distances. So you have that minimum distance, and then you have the 2 cars deep. You would still have enough room for the driveway behind it so that you could turn onto it.
I thought that the existing driveway, the edge of the driveway was the lot line.
So currently, it's not even the driveway. If you see, well, just if you go down the peak of the garage on the image on the
Uh-huh.
right there, and then almost down the side of the house is where the current property line is.
Okay,
And so the new proposed one would be the
Oh,
middle
got
of
it.
what
Yeah.
is the drive
see now.
area on
Yeah.
the current driveway.
okay.
This is kind of for Dustin, and I'm not sure it really is in our purview, but are they not able to count any of the drive itself as parking space?
Yeah, the driveway wouldn't count for the parking spaces. So the 3 car requirement, one of them has to be covered. So the back where the carport is, that carport has to be 3 feet from that rear property line. The carport has to be 10 and a half feet wide. Then that paved area has to be 9 and a half feet wide by 36 feet deep. So to me, the carport is, he's saying, is the minimum requirement. So 10 feet by, or 10 and a half feet by 20 feet. So that paved area is going to have to extend another 16 feet to the west. Currently how it's shown, if you look at the property line that's being proposed to split the driveway in half, from that property line to the back edge of the house. So back edge of the house here, all the way over to the property line in here. So this is the rear yard. So only 40% of the rear yard could be covered with structure paved area. So this is all included in what would be limited to 40%. But this paved area is going to have to extend out an extra 16 feet. So eyeballing it, 50% of the lots or the rear yard is going to be right here. So it's already, to me, showing that it's beyond the 40%, but then you have to add more. So it doesn't meet that 40% requirement. That paved area, like I said, has to be 9.5 feet minimum for the car to be able to open doors and things like that. There's only going to be 20 feet of rear yard from what I can tell here. So if you take the 3 feet, the 10.5 feet plus 9.5 feet, that exceeds the 20 feet that they have. So it doesn't fit 3 cars back there. And if it did, it doesn't meet the 40% requirement. Over on the right-hand side of the aerial image, it shows that there's approximately 25 feet between the back edge of the house and the edge of the garage. But if you look at the image in the middle, the existing garage to be removed looks like halfway between that 10-foot setback on lot 1. So that's where we're getting the 20 feet, not 25 feet. So does that help answer the questions that you're having, spacing wise?
I think so.
I've got a question there.
Go ahead, Matt.
So this is kind of interesting, complicated case, right? Because a lot of what we're talking about, I think, deals with planning commission. Is that the right place that a lot of this would go to next?
It would be reviewed by staff if a subdivision plat was submitted.
Okay. And of course, our purview is pretty limited. I mean, we're just looking at whether or not the garage is contributing or not, which I absolutely do not believe it is. I love the Van Wagenen house, drive by it often, almost every day. Never once have I thought, and the garage, whoa, that really contributes. So I guess the question then is, if we were to either approve the staff recommendation or the applicant's request, in planning commission, I mean, with the measurement of the two lots at 61 feet and 60 feet, that corner lot is going to be shorter no matter what. Is planning commission liable or are they likely to approve it, or will they have issues? I guess I'm just wondering, no matter what we do, it still has to go farther. And is anything we decide really going to make a difference?
Yeah, you're correct. So yeah, you're looking at, is it appropriate to reduce the lot size, the historic character there, and remove the garage? Do those components contribute to the historic significance of this property as a whole?
Right. But the bigger question is no matter what we decide, it has to take, there's a few more steps, and
yeah, and I don't see it being able to pass those steps.
okay. But they could pass them. I mean, the commission, the planning.
It doesn't meet the code as far as.
But they could. I get that doesn't meet the code, but could people like us vote to say, okay, we're going to give a certificate of appropriateness anyway? Is it possible? I'm just trying to understand what scenarios could happen. That's all.
It doesn't meet the code, so they wouldn't be able to approve something that doesn't meet the code.
Okay. So even the two lot wouldn't work.
Yeah, the two lots. So I think it goes back to, and that's a kind of a separate issue.
And I get that like the applicant doesn't think that they need permission. The city says we do. Yeah, I know. I get all that.
That'll be something that will have to be worked out.
Okay.
I think, we're trying to be lenient in saying, two lots would be appropriate because historically there was a home.
There were two lots. Yeah.
But when it comes down to all that technical stuff, that'll be stuff that we'll have to work through those issues.
Right. Okay.
But as what we've seen here, just to kind of help with that decision, even if it was approved, it doesn't look to be like it's going to be feasible.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dustin.
To Matt's point, I don't believe I've ever seen a collection or an architecture book or anything that deals with 1960s garages. So I'm with you on the garage. Yeah, I don't see the garage as supporting this home. One of the things that I haven't walked the site, so I don't know it very well, but just looking at it, I mean, this is a fairly large home by the downtown standards. And one of the concerns that I would have is that the lot, by putting the carport on in the paved area, or I guess even putting a garage on that area that's labeled carport, it feels a little cramped. And again, I haven't walked it, so I couldn't tell you, but based on this lot subdivision that I'm seeing, I am having a hard time getting behind how this great stately house is being kind of whittled away. I mean, Ninth East, I wish I knew where the boundaries were before Ninth East started to expand in all of its permutations. But I would imagine that Ninth East has encroached, and even Center Street has possibly encroached into this property line. And so now we're even whittling it more. So that would be my only concern with this application.
I've walked it 3 to 5 times, I think, since our last meeting, because I feel myself pulled, as everyone knows, in direction wise. The back lot is huge. It feels really big. The third lot feels, but it's true about the cramping of lot 2. And it's hard for me to envision lot 3 when I walk it because the house doesn't exist. But the back just felt like an enormous lot to me, if for helpful. Lot 1, yes.
My only comment would be last time I was hung up on the existence of a garage and going by it, it's not very consistent in the neighborhood to have a garage there. I mean, like half of them do and half of them don't. So historically, which I think is our purview, I think it's okay to move the garage. Whether or not it passes the code and blah, blah, I don't think that's really our job. So I hate to hang it up on the historicity of this when there's no historicity here to hang it up. So I don't really want to be the reason that it fails, I guess is what I'm saying.
I have a comment, maybe too all-encompassing, considering I feel my heart goes out to the people who live in the center of Center Street, who I think are more attached aesthetically and ideologically to downtown, yet they're in a Tree Street area where a representative of Tree Street said, "I don't care if you burn them all down." And I feel that heat coming from around us living in downtown where I live a lot is we're the forgotten area and we have to fight really hard for ourselves. I see a lot of separated garages, and when I built my house downtown, I built a separate garage to nod at the historicity around me, the historical nature of things. I care deeply about us all sucking it up for the future, you know? And when I walked it, I was like, no way. Then I walked it again, I was like, totally 3. When I walked it again, and I've talked. So I'm just going to listen to everyone's votes and then decide, because I also want to historically draw them into the downtown neighborhoods so that they have more representation and voices for them, rather than people just who drive by, but actual people that interact with their buildings in person and care about the neighbors and the people and don't just see them as as unimportant. When I see the houses improving and money being put into them, and that's what we're doing when we invest down here. And that's all. And I'll just keep listening. But I'm slightly attached to a detached garage, but I am easily swayed. That's all.
I have a detached garage and I don't care. Right on a lot line I share with my next door neighbor. And if you know them, it's difficult. Nicest people on the planet. Yeah. All right. Any other items for discussion? Scott, looks like you have something else to say.
I have one more amendment to make to my previous statement. As an architect, I'm always swayed by good architecture. I could be swayed depending on what the proposed solution is on the back there, that if it looks appropriate and it seems to fit with the home, And I have to clarify that when I said the lot lines were creeping in, I was thinking of the way the lot line is right now, not looking at what's up being presented right now with the lot line moved over, adding more space to the side. So to me, if you were somehow able to make that carport in the paved area fit within the code, then and have it look appropriate to the building, then I could get behind it.
I agree with Scott.
All right, any last points of discussion or questions for either the applicant or staff or Dustin? And I also just don't see any members of the public, so I suspect we can move past the period for public comment. Yeah, so based on our discussions, does the commission feel like we can entertain straw polls on what to do?
I'm inclined to, I would vote affirmatively towards a proposal to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the applicant and not adopt the staff recommendation. But it's 50-50 almost. And so I just want to, I would prefer to err on the side of the homeowner and trying to help an area that could become more revitalized.
Would you propose any conditions?
None that we could enforce, I don't think. But I don't know, unless someone else who's smarter, like you or Scott or Susan or anybody, could come up with some of those.
Just a clarifying question, is the Brian Dabb is the applicant on behalf of a homeowner?
He is the homeowner.
He is
You are the homeowner.
Brian is.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were Brian Dabb. Sorry.
Seamless.
Okay, so Brian Dabb is the homeowner.
He's
Okay.
again last. Oh, you weren't.
I wasn't here. I'm sorry. That's why I'm asking a dumb question.
No, it's fine.
No, it's not a dumb question.
Okay, so as a homeowner, I can presume that Brian Dabb would not want to put up a basic structure, right? In terms of the carport, he's going to want to make sure that it looks good.
Oh, he
And-
doesn't live in the home.
He doesn't live in the home. Okay, it's a rental home. Okay, never mind then.
But you're right. I mean, are you thinking a condition would be that the structure be at least complementary to the original Van Wagenen home? Is that kind of where your thoughts are going?
Yeah, that's where I'm going with that.
I don't think we could enforce that, but I think it nods to the historicity. So I think that's a nice condition, but I don't think it's enforceable, but I could be wrong.
So I think, sorry, I think what would happen would be if you did move forward with this certificate of appropriateness, saying that it is appropriate to divide the property and have the garage removed, the applicant would come back in the future when they have a concept of what that carport would look like and get a certificate of appropriateness for that design.
Yeah, because it would be attached or adjacent to the building, we'd have to approve that.
So we would.
Yeah. Yeah. Did I get that right, Dustin? That's what you were saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks,
I'm-
Dustin.
And we've done that before, like in Susan, my neighborhood,
Yeah.
the house on Center and Fourth East,
Yeah.
they put on a mudroom in the back that looks very modern. And I think it looks really cool. And we went through all that a few years ago.
I'm remembering this and then going back to it not fitting the standards as well. So even, would it be just make-believe if we were improving it, or would they just change their property line a little bit back?
I don't understand.
I understood that the 40% versus this, they'd need 60% of pavement, but it's 40%, right? Regarding the, and then him saying, when you asked, would this parking be approved? And then Dustin saying no because of the, does that make sense? You guys will work it out. We just vote. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can't exceed 40%.
Yeah,
of lot
yeah.
Coverage, which it looks like it already does.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. I think if we were to move forward, we would recognize that in its current conceptual plan, the site would need to be adjusted in order to conform, but that would go on with the planning commission.
But we're just voting on whether it's
Whether
appropriate
we
to
feel it's
divide it,
appropriate
period.
to
Not the
divide to
sizes.
3 lots.
Not the
Correct.
sizes,
Not the
just if
sizes,
it's
not the placement
appropriate
of
to
the property
divide it.
lines, but any leanings to either that wasn't a formal
I didn't make a
formal
motion.
yet,
I just suggested that I would be willing to make a motion.
right?
So the question is, does anybody else
Is there any
have
contrary,
other,
right?
either a,
Rejection or
yeah, either
continuing again?
adopt staff recommendation or a third option?
No further questions or observations.
Then will you entertain a motion?
Yes, let's entertain a motion.
I move that we approve a certificate of appropriateness for the applicant for a 3-lot subdivision in the R16 one-family residential zone in order to create 2 new building lots adjacent to a registered historic residence located at 905 East Center Street, which would, of course, include the demolition or the removal of the garage, and with the understanding that the carport or parking structure that will need to be built behind the Mail Wagnon home would come back to us for another certificate of appropriateness.
I'll second that and add some thoughts, some reasoning why I'm supporting this. And that's because I live in a downtown neighborhood just right over there. And if you look at the original plat maps, the property lines were, or the property lots were much, much larger. And then over the years, for whatever reason, whether economical or density or whatever, you saw those lot lines change and change and change and change. And so historically, there's a precedent for lot lines changing and becoming smaller. So I think that I'm in favor of the lot lines changing, just so long as we can make them conform to the city standards.
All right, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion is passed unanimously. So do we state again the conditions, or since they're recorded, we recognize that they're in place? Okay.
Could I make just, I'm grateful for the staff's report and their recommendations. It's clearly, this is a complicated issue and they've put a lot of work in it, and I'm really grateful for what they've done. Even if we didn't adopt their recommendation, I still think it was very valuable and had value to it.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Then we'll entertain a hearing or a motion to adjourn the hearing. We have to,
I second the motion?
No, you make.
you make
Oh,
the
I
motion.
make the motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.